unworthy of these realms. You're unworthy of your title! You're unworthy!
What's going on, everyone? This is Ace, and welcome back to The Reckoning. Today we'll be talking about how the Chaos Lord and Norse god Odin plays a role within the Lady Death universe. The Allfather actually has a major role within Lady Death's origin and in how she would grow into her powers and abilities. He also has indirectly shaped several pathways for some other key players within the universe. But before we begin, go ahead and give the video a like, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you enjoy the worlds of the Coffinverse and Lady Death alike. It really does help us out a lot, and we thank you so much. Now, where to begin? Well, let's see. As I mentioned, Odin, the Allfather, within Norse mythology, and all of Asgard and their existence is indeed a part of the Lady Death mythos. In the grand scheme of things, their role is somewhat minor, but very important and impactful to Lady Death's stories. You'll see what I mean shortly. So first, to lay the established groundwork, Odin is a Norse deity. First among the gods. For anyone that is familiar with this mythology, you may already know this, but he is the father of Thor and the prolonger of Ragnarok. But within the Chaos universe, he is also one of the ancient Chaos Lords. He remembers the time before creation, billions upon billions of years ago. But since the beginning of time, he had founded Asgard. He founded his people and his place within the universe. He, his wife Frigga, and his sons ruled over all of Asgard as the royal family. Never was there a leader more mighty. His dedication to the realm of warriors was unwavering. Now Odin was a wanderer too. He often traveled beyond to observe the universe and took in special interest into Earthrealm. He would appear answering the pleads and cries for help from his faithful from time to time. It would seem in a lot of these interactions he would adopt his future Valkyries, drawn to their will to survive. We know this from within Lady Death's story, The Crucible, where Odin's wife Frigga tells Lady Death of her connection to Asgard. There was a Viking woman, one of the most resilient Vikings, named Marion Svelgate. She lived during a time after the defeat of the final Viking chief. This was due to the violence from the Christian armies and their reckoning, and the last remaining Vikings were spread out across Eastern Europe. Their numbers diminished as they all fought for survival, and no one fought harder than Marion. She and her two daughters at this time would eventually be separated from Agnar, who was her husband during a Christian attack. Marion would be forced to flee with her two children, and Agnar would be killed by Matthias, a wretched lord whose bloodlust was only matched by his cruelty. While Marion ran with her children, they would get caught up in a blizzard. While being pushed to the brink of despair, and when Marion felt like giving up, she begs for Odin to save her daughters. She eventually finds a cave to shelter in and make a fire, but her oldest daughter is already shivering and will not make it if she isn't saved. Marion again pleads to Odin to take her daughters. Just then, out of nowhere, a traveler came. It would be none other than Odin. In disguise, he heard her prayers and he agrees to keep her daughters safe. But for Marion, he tells her that her time on Earth is not over, and he entrusts her with a task most important. He states that his power is too vast and too much for one god, and wishes to keep much of it, but will pass a portion of it to Marion's next child, and then proceeds to transfer his power to her. Heed my words, Marion. Though your days will grow dark, have hope. Marion accepts Odin's will. Odin would raise Marion's two daughters, and they would live in Asgard and become Asgardians, and eventually Valkyries. They would age slowly and obtain the godlike strength of their newly adopted people. It's at this point Lady Death learns that she has two sisters, Volnavia and Vandala, who are some of Asgard's mightiest Valkyries. Marion never mentioned her Viking heritage or Hope's sisters due to the fierce attack on anything that wasn't Christian in that time era. And while Lady Death questions and recalls being told that her mother's bloodline was said to stretch to heaven, and that she has been able to harbor angelic energy and wonders how this can be. To this, Frigga says she doesn't know all the answers to this, but but that Odin and Asgard are very much within Lady Death, just as they are within her sisters. Now, besides Lady Death's connection to Asgard, I'll pretty much just cover the realm's remaining time in existence within her story, because while I would say that it is a very important piece, it is very brief. Odin's acts of mercy not only affected the lives of Lady Death and her family, but would seem this is also how he has recruited many of his Valkyrie over the years. During his travels, he meets them on Earth, in their moments of survival, and brings them to be his warrior elite. We find this out during another scene from Lady Death's story, The Crucible, where at this point in the story, the remaining Valkyrie, including Lady Death, have all been beaten and trapped by Lord Genocide. The captured Valkyries share their first encounter with Odin, and how he rescued them in their time of need. As you can imagine, this is where the title of the video comes to play, as it is Odin's mercy that plays such an important role for these warriors. During this point, one of the Valkyries tells her story. She states, "My mother birthed a deformed feral child." She continues, "We were cast out, called witches, and soon after my father died, murdered by hungry wolves. My little brother Wrath and I were beaten by thieves. Though he died for a time, his little body kept me warm. I was doomed to die, but I simply refused, starving, hallucinating, and then Odin came to me." Now, while this story is quite sad and pretty intense, it actually, and to some degree unfortunately, connects several major parts within the Chaos universe and the end to Asgard, or as many would know it as Ragnarok. So let's go back to this tale, for the Valkyrie's little brother was on the verge of death. In fact, he may have reached that point, but after his sister was taken by Odin, his body lay there, and Citrina, a vampiric-like goddess, would take the boy and give him unimaginable power, and he would become one of the darkest and evil entities within the Chaos universe, simply known by his name, Wrath. Ironically enough, it would be this boy who would thousands of years later run into a runaway slave girl in the deserts of ancient Egypt, named Sakara. And if you followed this channel, then you can see where this is going. But for those of you who don't, essentially, Wrath would take this slave girl and turn her into the blood goddess we all know as Purgatory. Now, the final portion of this video to wrap up Asgard's involvement is, unfortunately, its ending. Not to get into too much detail, because I'll be making a video on this tale in the future, but yes, again, with Lady Death's story, The Crucible, Lord Genocide and his army horde are able to kill Odin, most of his sons, and he's pretty much able to crumble Asgard to ruins. But with the help of Lady Death and a treaty with the ice giants, Asgard just barely pulls through and is able to dodge Ragnarok. But Ragnarok is inevitable, as it would seem, and in a twisted way of fate would not let this go unpunished. Time goes on, and the Asgardians are able to resurrect Odin, possibly due to having his power or essence spread amongst various warriors and or objects, but it's never really clarified. And trust me, I've tried. But what is clear is as Asgard is slowly rebuilding itself, they will meet their swift and violent destruction at the hands of Purgatory. On her journey to become a goddess and having consumed many warriors into her blood army, and learning about Wrath's origin and what happened to his sister, she decides to take over and draft the Asgardians. Consuming most of the realm, she would eventually fight and kill Odin once more. Any Valkyrie or Asgardians who were lucky enough to escape or survive would retreat within the universe, and Asgard would cease to exist going forward. So while it is a very bleak ending for Odin and his kind, I do appreciate their implementation into the Lady Death lore. If you guys want to know about any other aspects of this story, or perhaps want to know what happens next, feel free to leave a comment down below. As always, you know I love talking about this stuff, so definitely put your questions down there. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and please give the video a like, hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to share the video or the channel with anyone you know who loves Lady Death or the Coffin verse. And as always, guys, I will see you here real soon. Thanks again for watching, and take care.